Colin and Alistair, two relatively new retainers in Robert the Bruce's army. They knew Julianna was important, but she was sure they didn't know how significant. She was a kitchen servant, or at least that's what they thought her to be. It did not go unnoticed that she had the ear of Robert. No one, however, knew just what her role was. They'd kept that a secret. They'd had to. It was the only way to protect themselves. After all, theirs was an illusion created to distract, to confuse. Colin and Alistair took her up on the offer, but then double-crossed her by refusing to release Myra, the bastards. But in the end that didn't matter. They hadn't succeeded because she'd helped Myra escape. Unfortunately, they could not both escape. There wasn't enough time, and Julianna had to distract the guards while Myra ran. Now Julianna only needed to bide her time. The Bruce would be fine for a day or two without her, albeit by now he was probably in a mighty temper. As soon as Myra came to, Julianna forced her out of the tent and toward the woods, to freedom. Myra meant nothing to Ross. He'd kill her without giving it a second thought. Julianna, however, was another story. Another story indeed. He wouldn't dare harm her, not if he valued his life. By killing her, Ross would be signing his own death warrant, and she was pretty sure he knew it. Though she still wasn't sure if he knew exactly who she was and what role she played, it was evident he wasn't going to take any chances. The fact that she'd sworn on her life and that of the future king's, then declared that she was valuable enough for a ransom, only made him double the guards around the tent, and then triple them after Myra escaped. Now she was trapped by a wall of guards. Escape seemed impossible. Seemed. In truth, she'd already devised a plan. Reaching up, she touched the two pins that held her hair in a tight knot. She'd bide her time. Besides, hadn't she asked Myra to give Ronan Sutherland her regards? Ronan. Forbidden. And so much more. Could they ever have more than witty conversations? She was foolish to think so. It could never happen for them. Never. But oh, how he made her heart flutter. Julianna lay back on the chilly cot and stared into the blackness, imagining him riding headlong into the camp of their enemy. But she had a right to her dreams, even if one day they might break her heart. She imagined him riding headlong into their enemy's camp. He'd swipe his sword in one arc after another, cutting them all down. And then he'd spot her. Their eyes would meet, and he'd whisk her up onto his horse and ride away with her. That was only a fantasy. No man in their right mind would step into the Ross camp alone, and she'd never ride away with him. Her duty was to Scotland. No man besides the Bruce would ever have her loyalty. Julianna flopped an arm over her face. She was drained, but sleep did not come. She'd barely closed her eyes in the 3 days since she'd been captured. But she wasn't tired of mind. Her thoughts raced constantly, though her body was beginning to show signs of exhaustion. She often kept herself up days at a stretch, training or fasting to prepare herself for times such as this. The first 2 days had been easy. This last day was taking its toll. She was starving. Ross barely fed her. What food he gave her in the beginning she'd given to Myra to aid in her escape. And what food she had now was barely enough to sustain life. She licked her parched lips. This, too, she had overcome. Perhaps if she just allowed herself to rest a little, on the morrow she'd attempt an escape. "Get up, bitch!" Julianna had barely dozed off when she was jolted awake. Sunlight streamed through the opening of the tent, where one of Ross' men stood holding a mug and a bowl. His hair was greasy.